What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Batter's Eye. Just another solo episode on our part for the host here, but we got another great guest for you guys. Take a second to introduce yourself, tell us where you're at, and what position you play.
What's up? I'm Roch Cholowsky. I'm at UCLA, play shortstop. I'm a sophomore, and I'm from Chandler, Arizona.
So, yeah, obviously, you talked about being out west and playing at UCLA now, but growing up in Arizona, you were a two-sport athlete, also a very good quarterback. And then playing baseball, you were one of the top players in your class. And what was the recruiting journey like, just being a two-sport athlete as well, kind of deciding if you wanted to stick with that at the next level, what that would be like, and then just going and ending up choosing UCLA, which is obviously one of the blue bloods of baseball.
Yeah, so it was pretty early on when the baseball recruiting process started. Football started pretty late.
Mhm.
Eighth grade was the first time that I got a call from UCLA. Just kind of talked to them over, the next year, and made the decision pretty quick. I was just talking to like two, three schools. It was really just ASU, Oregon, and UCLA. Um, And the day that UCLA offered me, I committed. I knew that this was my dream school. I'd always grown up wanting to go to UCLA. On the phone call that Coach Savage gave me the offer, I committed. But with the football process, it was pretty late. It was more senior year when I started getting looks and offers. It was always the dream growing up playing both in college. But, once I got closer to, that time, I just wanted to be realistic with myself. There's not a lot of Deion Sanders and Bo Jacksons out in the world that can play professionally in both. Just picking one and picking the one that I thought I could go further in, and the one that I love more was kind of all it led up to. It would have been cool to play both in college, definitely, but just kind of taking the smart route personally was picking baseball and staying with UCLA.
Yeah, I mean it's super interesting because also in your class, Max was also another great two-sport athlete, and when we had him on, he was like, "Yeah, if I get to Vandy, I would love to play both, and I think they would let me." And it's just interesting to think because you don't see many guys like that come around ever, and to have two guys and the top 10, top 15 of the same baseball draft class also being great football athletes, it's kind of crazy to come around. But the next thing I kind of wanted to talk to you about was just going into, your freshman year at UCLA. Obviously, you had a great freshman season. You had a lot of success, and the team had a lot of success as well, transitioning into the Big Ten. It was a transition year, obviously, for a lot of the returning players, and it's hard. You had to travel a lot, especially with the first year of it. Not many teams ended up coming out to California. I think it was just kind of working things out. And so, what was it like last year, just kind of going through that freshman year, experiencing it, and obviously there's ups and downs, but overall you had a pretty successful season.
Yeah, coming into it, sorry about that. Coming into it, it was a lot of trial and error. Just learning the ins and outs of college baseball. The Big Ten travel this year has been, it's long, but it's worth it. Good teams travel and can play anywhere. So, it's going to be good for us to, go on the road to these far schools and play some pretty good competition. But just going through my freshman year, it took me 20, 30 games to really get settled in, it felt like. Just mentally and physically, learning the games of base or learning the game of college baseball, how different it is from high school and summer ball.
Yeah.
And then once I settled in, I felt like I could be myself, and my game started to really take off. The back half of the season was, what I felt like I should be doing, and just carrying that on to my second year was big for me.
Yeah, and so far this year, I mean, you've had a tremendous start to the season. And what has it been like? Obviously, you guys have propelled back into rankings in a lot of media sites, and you guys are a team to watch. And the hype around UCLA baseball is kind of back. And it's been, I wouldn't say a while, but it's been a couple of years since, you guys have had that legit squad, and it's super fun to watch. And, talk us through maybe some of the best moments so far this season. If you've had like yeah, this is it moment so far. Anything in specific?
Through the whole fall and the preseason, we were kind of not a team that anyone thought was, going to be a factor this year. Just looking at the rankings and the preseason
Yeah.
polls. Just that first weekend, going out and playing our game of baseball and sweeping a good Cal Poly team who ended up beating A&M the following week.
Yeah.
Just really showed us that we can compete, we can play with good schools.
Mhm.
And then going to Maryland was a big turnaround for us because last year we did struggle on the road. We won 4 games on the road last year, and going and taking a 2 out of 3 series from a really good Big Ten team. They had some really good players. The Copian brothers were great that weekend.
Yeah,
Uh, you know, yeah, Clark, a big offensive team. Just taking 2 out of 3 for them just kind of, gave us more confidence that, this year that we could really turn things around. I think it's shown through the first 20 games.
for sure. And I think that, especially with the Big Ten, the way things have shaped out this season, I like, what Oregon's doing. I like what you guys are doing. And I think you guys just kind of set yourself atop at the conference. So a lot to look forward to as you guys head into, the bigger series of conference play. Is there any, specific matchups other than Oregon that you guys have circled?
SC for sure. SC is always a big one. Across town, it's great to play those guys. They got some really good talent. They got a great coach and Coach Stank. But those are always the fun ones. The Pac-12 ones that we get to play again. But I'm looking forward to Northwestern coming into town. My high school, one of my best friends from high school, who's playing a shortstop for him now, is over there. So getting to play him will be pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. And so something else I want to kind of talk to you about is the summer on the Cape and just the learning experience, the growth that you get from that, and, the development that one gets not just as a player, but also learning from the other players that have experienced a lot of everything in college baseball. You have some of the guys that have came in like the Drew Burrises and lit up the world as freshmen. And you had guys that have struggled, went through injuries, and been through the gauntlet playing there. And what was that experience like last summer? And what's it like to look forward to again? Obviously, it's coming up after the season. It's always something fun. A lot of players talk super highly about that.
I love the Cape. I had a great setup. My host family was awesome. I had no complaints over the summer. Just getting to talk to a lot of guys who play in different conferences and play for different schools and, just kind of have different paths was, pretty cool for me to just kind of pick their brains and see what they're all about. And then playing against the competition it's second to none. The pitchers we were seeing every game, every guy's going out there for 2 innings and giving you their best. You got to see one guy, one at bat, and then the next time you're facing another,
Hmm.
great arm. So,
Yeah.
just, learning myself and, learning how to compete against those guys was big for me this summer and felt like it's carried over into this year.
Yeah, I like that. And so the last thing I kind of want to touch on about, the adjustments you've made so far in your game going on to this year before we move into just other things about this season is just specific adjustments, anything with your hitting game that you've carried into this year. I mean, this year so far, you've shown off a lot more power that you've tapped into, especially to the pull side, but also you've had a better approach at the plate, just kind of attacking at your zone. I feel like watching you, you've been a lot more disciplined than last year, whereas you had an aggressive approach where it worked for you, but you seem to dial it back this year. What was that process like, and how is that working through that in the offseason? Because I feel like though there are times where you're aggressive, you've seemed to really attack in specific zones at the plate, and it's worked really well for you.
Yeah, a big thing for me was understanding how I'm going to get pitched this year. Being a freshman last year, there wasn't really a book on me. There wasn't, a scouting report early on in the year as to how I was going to get pitched. So I was going up there pretty much freely swinging. Whereas this year, after coming off a pretty good year last year, I just trying to understand the strike zone and understand what situation I was going to get pitched into. And then mechanically, it wasn't anything different. I got a little more into my legs and try and make my swing a little more simple because I do have a bit of a leg lift and a bat tip, so that is a lot of movement. And just trying to tone that back and simplify that was key for me in the off season.
Yeah. And so, I mean, just going into that, the translation, how simple is that? Like, how seamless was that going in through the fall? Was that just something that through the off season you worked on it, and in the fall it kind of clicked right away, or was there just like a adjustment period? And how was that going through that? Because obviously baseball is such a game of trial and error. I mean, for kids watching, take us through what the process is like just to adjust such small things in a swing that you've perfected for so long, because it's so important, especially at this level.
Yeah, it definitely took me a little bit. It was probably 20, 30 ABs where I felt like I was, just kind of discombobulated, struggling a little bit. Felt like there was a lot of moving parts going on when I was first, changing it up. But I stuck with it, and then once I started to see the results, I knew that this was going to be best for me in my swing. So it was just sticking with it was the big part of it.
Hmm. All right. So moving forward, we'll look a little bit ahead. Obviously, you still have the rest of this year and next year, and the goal is to win a national championship. But as you've been through the draft process once, maybe it gets a little easier the second time. But looking ahead, what are some things that you're looking forward to about that, and just knowing that that's on the horizon, it's in the back of your head, a little bit at all times. It's just a chip on your shoulder as well.
Just thinking about playing professional baseball and getting to where I've always wanted to go. Um, it's not really the main focus right now, but it is something that I do like to think about every now and then and kind of look into.
Hmm.
It's going through it in high school. It wasn't too much of a stressful process because I really did have my heart set on going to school
Yeah.
from an early time. And I feel like it's going to be pretty easy the second time around too, just because I know there is no second option. Um, it's either play professional baseball or don't. So, just whoever takes me and wherever I go, I'm blessed to be at. So, just thinking of that and, just taking it day by day.
Yeah, 100%. That's a great way to look at it. And obviously, you talk about that strong commitment. And what was that like? Because it's obviously very tough to, as a high schooler, especially when you're in the mind of an 18-year-old, to pass up on the opportunity to play professional baseball. It's a dream you have, a lot of people have growing up. And not to, and this is not to say, there's so many other possibilities, so many things that happen, not injuries or anything, but just in general. What's it like just, kind of going through that decision to you say, yeah, I'm going to go to school, bet on myself. And, how is that process? Obviously, it's super tough when you have that strong commitment. It's a little easier, but just for obviously for people watching, I know there's a lot of kids that I know that, are in that process committing and top draft prospects that follow us and watch us. So, any advice for any of them?
The biggest thing was, I mean, getting to develop for a couple of years while also still trying to play winning baseball was something that I did look forward to. And then also just seeing players that did make the same decision that I do and having it pay off for them, like Matt McLean, for example, who was drafted in the bottom of the first round and still decided to come to UCLA and had 3 great years and played for 3 really good teams, and then ended up signing for $5 million with the Reds.
Yeah.
So, it was he was someone that I did look into and kind of see his process to kind of, just believe more in the process with that.
Yeah, Dylan Cruz is another great example of that. I know he got drafted pretty early and ended up going to LSU. But there's a lot of guys. So yeah, that's a great insight on that. And so moving on now, I just want to ask before we go into rapid fire, if there I know the team goal is obviously win a national championship, but if you have three goals, one being another team goal, and then two being maybe some individual goals that you have for yourself, it doesn't have to be just this season, but over the near future, what would you say those are?
Team goals would be to win 40 games and host a regional. Hosting a regional in Westwood, I feel it would be pretty cool.
Yeah,
Getting to see the stands packed out and, bringing in 3 really good teams to compete against for a chance to go to a super.
for sure.
Uh, Individual goals, I'd like to hit over 350. I mean, I do look at Dylan Cruz's stats a lot, and his freshman year stats were absurd when he came to school. And, that's just kind of something that looking into his stats, just hoping that I can recreate a season like that his freshman, sophomore, or junior year.
Yeah.
So, hit over 350 or 100 hits, whatever that is, and then hopefully hit 15. Um, That'd be another goal of mine. I mean, I'm at 7 right now. I hit 8 last year. I feel like hitting 15 would be pretty cool, especially at our park.
Yeah, I think that's definitely doable. Like I said, the power surge has shown so far. I mean, a month into the season, you're at 7. Definitely on a good pace. I love to see it. So we'll check in on those goals. We'll keep a counter on that for sure. And now we'll move on to our rapid fire section. And we have it on in the background right now. It's March Madness, the first round. I don't know the scores. I know Creighton was up last I checked. I don't know what High Point Purdue is. We can look, but we'll fill out a little bracket here. Let's see what
Sweet.
we can get. Um, I'll run into the tournament challenge app and just run it from there.
But
So first round, we'll start off with the overall one, Auburn, Bama State. I
at
think
Auburn,
scratch. Creighton, Louisville. It's going on right now. I took Creighton in my bracket.
I
Uh,
took Creighton in mine as well.
they're up. They're up 15 with a minute and 58 left. So next
Beautiful.
we have Michigan and UC San Diego.
I took UC San Diego in that game.
That's a sneaky upset pick. I took Michigan, but I wouldn't be surprised if UC San Diego pulls that one off. And next we have Yale and Texas A&M, where I took the upset in Yale.
I took A&M in that game.
Yeah, I mean, just coming. I'm at Quinnipiac. We see Yale every year. They're a decent,
Mm,
scrappy team. They play some good defense, and A&M turns the ball over a lot. I don't know.
true.
UNC, Ole Miss next.
Took UNC there.
I did as well. I think they somehow pull it off after they
After barely
shouldn't have
making the
made it.
tournament.
Yeah, they shouldn't have made it, and they'll pull it off somehow.
Yep.
Iowa State and Lipscomb.
Took Iowa State.
I did as well. And then we have Marquette and New Mexico.
Took UNM upset Marquette.
Really?
I
I
like
took
UNM's
Marquette.
offense.
Okay, I like it. I took Marquette, but that's a solid pick. And then Michigan State over Bryant in my bracket.
Michigan State.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't be
Florida.
comment.
I had Florida. Uh,
Florida, yeah.
UConn, Oklahoma was a good game. I took UConn.
So did I. Took UConn.
Coach, I think experience will get it done.
For sure.
Memphis, Colorado State.
Think I took Colorado State there. 12 over 5, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, took Colorado State.
I took Memphis. I think PJ Haggerty is just too nice to lose in round one. Uh,
Yeah.
Grand Canyon versus Maryland. I
I
took Grand
took Maryland.
I took GCU. I don't know. I don't know. Derek Queen
I'm
might.
big on Derek Queen.
I like him a lot, but it's a big game. Freshman. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
I
GCU.
got Maryland going far in mine.
I think they could. I think they can make a run if they get past this game. I think they make a run.
For sure.
Missouri and Drake. I took Drake.
Took Drake too.
Texas Tech and Wilmington. I took Texas Tech.
I think I took Tech there too.
Arkansas and Kansas. Took Arkansas.
I can't remember who I took on that. I feel like I would have taken Kansas. They're a big three ball team. But I
They
mean, I don't know about betting against Coach Cal.
I took it because I have St. John's winning and I want to see Rick Pitino go up against Coach Cal in the round.
There.
It would have been electric. Then I have Duke over Mount St. Mary's. That
Yep.
should be Quinnipiac. We lost to Iona. That was rough.
Yep.
Baylor over Mississippi State in my bracket.
Yep. Same here.
I have Oregon beating Liberty,
Uh-huh.
Arizona beating Akron.
Yep.
I have BYU beating VCU.
I'm on that. I
It's
think BYU could sneaky make a run.
I do too.
They're pretty good.
I have Wisconsin beating Montana. They're up by 8 at the half right now.
Yeah, I have Wisconsin too. That's a 3-14, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have Vandy over St. Mary's. The
Same.
10th. Then I have Alabama. Um, I have Houston, obviously, and they're up 16 already. So
Sweet.
Gonzaga over Georgia.
Yeah, I got that.
Sorry, Trey Phelps. He's repping Silas DeMary. I know that. Clemson over McNeese. That's the most popular 12. I took Clemson.
Yeah, I took Clemson. I watched that Clemson Duke game earlier in the year, and I don't see Clemson
Good.
losing to Nice.
They're good. They
Good.
almost made a run at the ACC championship too. They lost by 2 against and I think it was against Louisville.
Yeah,
Louisville made the finals. Yeah, like I think Clemson, if they won that game, they would have beat Duke when Flag went out.
yeah, for sure. No, Clemson was real in the season.
I think so. I took High Point over Purdue, and
I think that one too.
right now they're down 8, but there's 10 minutes left, so it could happen. I took Illinois over Xavier.
Yeah, did the same. Kylan Boswell's real.
Yeah, if that was Texas though, I would have taken Texas. Trey Johnson would
Yeah,
have. Oh, I would have so taken that. Kentucky over Troy,
yep,
UCLA over Utah State,
of
and
course.
Tennessee over Wofford.
Yep,
Uh, then we'll go back to the top. So I went Auburn over Creighton.
yep.
I got
Auburn's. I'm big on Pettiford. Pettiford's sick.
I have uh I have Michigan over Yale, but you could give me who you have because you had UC San Diego and A&M playing there.
I think I had A&M beating UC San Diego.
Okay. And then for UNC, Iowa State, I had UNC winning that.
I had UNC as well.
I have Michigan State beating Marquette.
Yep. I had Michigan State beating who did I have them playing? I had Marquette losing in the first.
Okay. Oh, they had New Mexico, yeah.
Yeah. At
So you have
Michigan State
Michigan
beating
State beating New
Mexico.
Mexico. So I have Florida, then I have Florida over UConn.
Yep.
Memphis over GCU. So you have Maryland there,
I have
and
Maryland beating. Uh,
you have Colorado State.
yeah,
So and then I have Drake beating Texas Tech.
yeah. I got Drake going.
Yeah, and then I have St. John's over Arkansas.
Okay, I had St. John's over Arkansas too.
So then I have Duke over Baylor,
Yep.
Oregon over Arizona.
I had Arizona over Oregon.
Okay, Arizona's on a run, so I could see it. They're
Fair.
really hot.
Plus I watched Oregon play our guys twice, and I wasn't impressed.
Okay, I haven't seen it, so that's fair. I have BYU over
UCLA beat them
Wisconsin.
pretty. UCLA went to Oregon, and Dylan Andrews hit a bank three for the win, and then
Okay,
we killed it at our place.
nice. All right, so well,
I
I mean
got
it's locked now, but I have BYU over Wisconsin in the next
I have
one.
Wisconsin there. I think Wisconsin can shoot.
They're good, but my boy Connor Segan is at Nebraska now, and so I'm just gonna not pick Wisconsin there. So Bama over Vandy in my next matchup.
Yep.
I have Houston over Gonzaga,
Yep.
Clemson over High Point,
Yep.
Kentucky over Xavier, and UCLA beating Tennessee.
I have that same thing.
I don't
I got
like.
our magic running out after that though.
Yeah, I do too. I just don't like Tennessee.
Fair.
I have Auburn over Michigan in this one. You have Texas A&M and Auburn playing.
I have Auburn winning it.
And I took UNC over Michigan State, somehow fluking their way to the Elite Eight.
I have Michigan State in there. I like Tom Izzo.
I do. It's just somehow I feel the magic for UNC. I gotta do it
They're barely get last four in and make a run.
somehow. It's
Fair.
gotta happen. The Cinderella's got to be the blue blood. My
Yeah.
Florida over Memphis.
Yeah.
And I took St. John's over Drake. So
I have
then,
St. John's there too. But I actually I have Maryland over Florida. I have Maryland going to the Final Four.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, that's a big upset. I like it
Yeah.
though.
I got a four seed in my Final Four.
All right, that's not bad. I have something too. I have Duke over Oregon,
I have Duke over U of A in mine.
and then uh I have BYU beating Alabama.
I think I have Bama there. No.
See Wisconsin beating Bama.
Yeah, I have Wisconsin beating Bama.
So yeah.
I like Big Ten
Wait,
basketball.
actually, oh wait, never mind. I have Wisconsin beating BYU and Bama in this. Never
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah.
So I also have Wisconsin beating. What? Oh, I'm looking at the wrong. Never mind. Yeah, I was looking at the wrong thing. Um, I do have Clemson over Houston.
I have Houston.
I I'm only doing that in spite of Nate because he's a huge Houston fan. And then I have Kentucky over UCLA.
Yeah, I do too. Sadly.
Next, we have Auburn over UNC.
Yep, Auburn. I got Auburn over Michigan State in mine.
And then I have St. John's beating Florida.
I've got Maryland beating St. John's.
Okay, I like it. And I have Duke beating Wisconsin
Yep.
and Clemson. Who are they playing here? Clemson beating. Why am I blanking on who they have here? Oh, Kentucky.
Yeah.
So
Um,
yeah, I have Clemson beating Kentucky.
yeah. My bottom right was
Duke and
who did
Clemson.
I have there?
So you had
In the
Wisconsin,
bottom right.
you had Kentucky, and then Houston.
Yeah, I have Houston going.
Yeah. So Houston beats Kentucky. I
Yeah.
have uh so then yeah, I have Clemson going to the Final Four, Duke beating Clemson, and St. John's beating Auburn.
Okay, I have Auburn and Houston in the championship, I think.
Okay. And then
Houston went in 81 to 78, I think was my tiebreaker.
I had yeah, my I have St. John's winning 79 to 71. over Duke.
You like Patino that much?
No, I'm just from New York and I have to show bias.
Fair, fair.
I, realistically, my realistic bracket, I'd probably have Florida winning it.
Florida's pretty good.
I think their offense is hard to stop right now.
Yeah, and they got size too.
Yeah. But that's all we got for this. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. It's been a half hour already. I know you guys have practices and all that and travel stuff. So enjoy that. Have a good weekend for the series. Were you guys playing?
We got Indiana today or tomorrow,
So
and
watch
then
that. It'll be on ESPN Plus, I'm assuming, or Big Ten
Big
Network.
Ten Plus, I think. Big
Big
Ten
Ten
Network. Yeah.
Plus. Yeah. All right. So Big Ten Network, I have to get used to that one because you're the only one that's not on ESPN Plus. But
Yeah.
it's you can watch it still. Big Ten Network. Check it out this weekend, and we'll check back in. We'll definitely have you back on again. Thanks for your time.
Awesome.
I appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Thank you for having me.
Yep, of course.